Hi, so before we get into the video, I want to make a quick disclaimer. This audio was recorded before the movie was available on VOD, and therefore it is based on my first and only watch of the film at the time. I've seen it the second time at this point, so if I have anything to add, I will just jump right in and make a little comment here and there. Okay, thank you so much and enjoy the video. Hi, I'm Buffy and I talk about movies because I want to, the most basic intro in the world, but here we go. Today I'll be talking about The Fantastic Four First Steps, directed by Matt Shakman and starring Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, God help me, Ebon Moss-Bachrach, I believe that's how you say the name, but if I'm mispronouncing it, I apologize, and Joseph Quinn as the titular Fantastic Four themselves. Do I need to talk about the synopsis of this film? I don't think so, but here we go anyway. So the Fantastic Four is basically about this group of astronauts turned superheroes who get their powers after there's an accident in space. There you go. Is this good enough?
I don't know.
Well, all we need to know is that the Fantastic Four as a Marvel property had been sold to Fox a long time ago when Marvel was broke as hell, so they had to sell the movie rights for the X-Men, Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, and a bunch of other properties to other companies, and therefore we've gotten different versions of these properties as movies over the years, but not very successfully. Speaking of Fantastic Four specifically, the first iteration of the film was created in the 90s, I believe, produced by Roger Corman, the god of B-movies himself. But that version was never actually completed and never released in the theaters. In fact, the cast was lied to and told that the movie would be released in theaters, but in reality, I believe it was only filmed in order for the studio to hold on to the rights to this property. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm remembering it correctly. Either way, the leaked, unfinished version of this film has become a cult classic over the years as one of the best bad movies to watch ever. But let's be honest, it's actually really, really bad. It's very charming and innocent, but yeah, very bad. The next version of the Fantastic Four came out in the 2000s. I was quite young back then, and I have my nostalgia glasses on when I think about those films. I remember enjoying them at the time, having fun, and not thinking too much about the plot or anything else about them afterwards. However, before the last iteration of the Fantastic Four came out, you know, the one that none of us want to remember, I rewatched those movies again, and I couldn't believe the amount of cheese, overacting, and sheer absurdity of them. So yeah, not great, but I'm still fond of them personally. I would never recommend anyone watch them now though. And then we got the infamous, unfinished, and body horror-esque Fantastic Four, commonly referred to as Fant4stick, and all I'll say is wig. And also, what a waste of Michael B. Jordan. Okay, moving on. Now, in the sea of superhero movies that all look alike, all gray and smoky and chaotic in the third act, just like I mentioned in the last video, and in the Marvel universe where in order for one to get a full experience and enjoyment out of watching a film, one must either 1. Watch a bajillion movies and TV shows beforehand, and yes, I am white enough to say the word bajillion unironically, or B. Endure exposition after exposition for the first act of every single movie that go on and on and on for like 25 minutes straight in order for one to catch up on the events that have transpired since the last movie came out. Shout out to Captain America, the last movie, whatever it was called. The Fantastic Four Baby Steps, not Baby Steps, what is it? First Steps, okay. The Fantastic Four First Steps was a breath of fresh air. Honestly. Why, how titillating to see color on the big screen in a superhero picture again. My, how invigorating to not have to feel as if though I am taking an exam without having studied a pinch. What am I doing? Why am I doing the British accent?
Are you sure about that?
I'm going to stop. Sorry. I really enjoyed the visuals of this film. And I believe this movie was directed by the same guy who directed Loki, I think. Alright, so let me jump right in here and let you know that this has nothing to do with me having just watched this movie once, but I have no idea why I wrote Loki in my script. And yes, I did write Loki in my script. I was thinking of WandaVision, but yeah, I wrote Loki because I believe Loki's production designer is the same as the production designer for Fantastic Four First Steps. And I just like combined everything together. I think that's just what happened. I apologize. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. And I believe WandaVision. He also had interesting visuals. I didn't see the show. I'm not going to watch the show. I don't think I am. Because, again, I refuse to have to do homework in order to enjoy a movie. But yeah, I think this guy actually excels at the visual side of things, right? The production and set designs also deserve a special kind of mention. It all felt very alternative Earth, futuristic 60s, which was the intended effect, I believe. Since this is supposed to be in a different verse in the multiverse, I guess. Again, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Everything from New York to interiors to tech to costumes to the visuals of TV shows and cartoons, everything felt very purposeful and inspired, visually exciting and sensible. I also loved the retro sounding score along with the theme song, if we are allowed to call it that. It was very reminiscent of old school shows and superhero media. I had the misfortune of watching this film on Screen X, or whatever it's called, where the walls on the sides are also screens. What? So the aspect ratio and framing looked a little weird from where I was sitting, but I imagine those issues don't exist in the original format. I thought the movie was visually interesting and charming. The framing and shot composition seemed purposeful and it just looked refreshing, as I said. Another aspect of the film that I enjoyed was the fact that its structure did not follow the oh-so-common Marvel formula. This film is not action-heavy at all. We get a necessary exposition montage of our heroes doing heroic deeds while Sherlock's brother tells us how they got where they are. Since we don't start the story at the beginning, we jump right into it. They are 4 years into their heroic journey. And then boom, things start happening. Silver Surfer, Galactus, and all that. We get about 3 action scenes in total, not counting the montage in the beginning, which I thought was a great decision. The movie is basically about family. Family. And I loved watching the Fantastic Four interact with each other, face danger and hardship and public unrest together, work out solutions in their labs and offices and whatnot. They seemed like real people, burdened by this unimaginable weight slowly crushing them under it. Galactus? Oh yeah, that's how I say it. It's not Galactus, it's Galactus. Okay. Galactus as a villain was a very formidable. Okay, oh my god. Galactus as a villain was a very formidable foe. If you watched my previous video, you know that I am sick of the world-ending trope in every single superhero movie. However, to me, it seemed quite fitting in this film since Galactus as a character in comic books and in here is all about that. He eats planets, that's his thing. So yeah, if he's the main villain of the film, it's totally logical that the world is about to get devoured. I liked that the film has this one singular villain and doesn't try to add anyone else to it. A lot of superhero movies aren't content with only one villain or one world-ending conflict at a time. I guess the state of the world right now is such that one world-ending horror seems like a much better time than we're going through in reality right now. So yeah, there's that. But still, this Fantastic Four movie chose its main battle carefully and I think it paid off. I thought the acting was pretty solid overall. Pedro Pascal did a great job in my opinion. He always looks somewhat tired, which I relate to on a very deep level. And it worked really, really well for Reed Richards here. I loved his chemistry with Vanessa Kirby. They seemed like a real couple who know each other a little too well. Very married life, very sick of each other's crap in moments. They did a really good job portraying that dynamic. And in general, I thought Vanessa Kirby's performance was wonderful almost the whole time. I think she did a fantastic job, pun intended, where she needed to the most. All the emotional scenes hit really hard with her. The speech she makes to the public, she sold it really, really well, and it tugged on my heartstrings as well. Where I thought she seemed to hold back a little too much were the action scenes, where she seemed like she was supposed to be screaming her lungs and vocal cords out, but she looked mildly uncomfortable and still very attractive and, put together. So, I don't know, that took me out of those moments a little bit. Ben Grimm, or The Thing, was also quite relatable as a character, although I wished that we could have seen more of what was going on in his head. He just seemed like a really nice man turned into a rock man, capable of clobbering things. And there's nothing wrong with that in my book. Acting-wise, I'm not sure what to talk about. He was fine, emoting as much as was possible with his rocky face. I will say though that his CGI in the beginning of the film looked kind of wonky, but just in one scene and in a couple of frames. The only acting I'm truly on the fence about is Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm. I think the character himself was much better written than the other versions we've gotten of him, so that was good. He actually contributed to solving problems using his brain. What a great decision. He still was the main comic relief in the film, along with, The Thing, and I thought his lines were mostly quite funny and well written, but his delivery was somewhat lacking in my opinion. I noticed a bit of overacting at points, as if he was trying to be funny instead of acting as Johnny Storm, and then that action being funny, or what he was saying being funny on its own without him adding to it extra facial expression wise. All in all, Joseph Quinn did a pretty good job, but wasn't a standout. Okay, so now listening to myself talk about Johnny Storm or Joseph Quinn's performance, I realized that I made it sound worse than it was. Especially on the second watch, I didn't find it as overacting-y as I made it sound in this audio. A few moments here and there were a little bit of a miss for me. I thought it was worth pointing out. However, most of the time his comedic timing is actually really good, and I think he does a pretty good job. His performance is solid, and that's it. Speaking of Johnny Storm, I'm going to spoil a couple of things, so please feel free to skip to this part of the video to avoid spoilery talk. 3, 2, 1, spoilers, ahoy! I think I'm kind of stealing this from some other creator, but I don't remember who. Sorry. Spoilers ahoy! Okay, I'm gonna stop. Throughout the whole film, Johnny's ideas are kind of brushed off by various characters. They listen to him and take some of his suggestions in consideration, but... Jesus! Okay, sorry. But on the whole, everyone kind of dismisses him, which I thought was a clever way to show and not tell through expository dialogue that he's been pretty much useless in terms of participating in problem-solving activity on the brainstorming stage of it all. However, at some point, Johnny comes across these recordings of an alien language, but I'm afraid I'm not sure how that happened. I apologize for missing that part, but I was sitting next to very chatty and commentaty teenagers, and sometimes they were speaking very loudly or looking at their phones with blinding levels of brightness on. So needless to say, I was very distracted and seething on the inside. Side note, if you think that the sole activity of watching a movie without talking over it or looking at your phone is boring, please do yourself and most importantly the rest of us a favor and stay at home. Stop wasting your money and my patience and goodwill with your stupid behavior. Okay, rant over. Okay, to be fair to me, I'm still not sure why that happened, actually. Unless I missed it the second time, which, let's be honest, is not unlikely. However, Mr. Fantastic just gives Johnny Storm like a golden vinyl and he's like, listen to this one. Here's another one. I guess they've been receiving the recordings over and over again? I don't know. Let me know, okay? Anyway, Johnny gets hold of these recordings and he's like, I'm gonna make myself useful for once. How about that? That big brain brother-in-law of mine has a whole ass planet portal to invent. So meanwhile, I'm just gonna learn a whole new language, bitch. And he does. I was so proud of him and I was so jealous. My Duolingo ass could never. And at the end, him trying to sacrifice himself in order to save his nephew made me quite emotional, actually. So yes, I thought his character had a well-developed arc, and I enjoyed being pleasantly surprised by it. I have already mentioned Galactus, and I must say that him and Quicksilver. Okay, I have no excuses for this. Thank you. Were a menacing duo, to say the least. They were portrayed as a legitimate and inevitable threat, which seemed palpable and insanely dangerous, and therefore quite dark. Visually, Galactus looks a lot more interesting in comics, in my opinion, but at least he wasn't made to be a cloud in this one, so that was a huge improvement. He was a really menacing sight to behold. His first reveal was super impactful for me. So yeah, it was a great villainous duo. Okay, my final thoughts. plots. I definitely recommend watching this movie if you like superhero films in general, and especially if you like Fantastic Four and if you've wanted to watch a good Fantastic Four movie for a while. I know at least one of my friends was so looking forward to this one because he loves these characters and he's never gotten like a good movie with them in it. So, congrats to all these people, who have been waiting for it for a while. I think the movie was visually pleasing, refreshing in this oversaturated genre, and heartfelt at the same time. The acting is solid, the action is solid, the CGI is mostly really, really, really good, except for some stretching effects on, Pedro Pascal's face, because I think stretching is just like a weird effect to put on a human body. And yeah, I'm not sure there is a way to make it better at this point. Maybe in the future. But yeah, for what the technology allows us to do at the moment, I thought everything was done superbly. And the plot is enjoyable and compact. If you want an action-packed, balls-to-the-wall superhero extravaganza, you might be disappointed. But if that's the case, there are a bajillion other superhero films that you can watch instead. And yes, I said the word bajillion again, unironically. Anyway, let me know what you thought of the film. If you've seen it, let me know what you would like me to talk about next. And if I can, I will. And please subscribe if you feel like it, and like the video if you like the video. I'm really good at this, the call to action thing, aren't I? Anyway, thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye! Why can't I stop doing the British accent? I don't know. Is it British or is it Australian? Either way, it's positively ghastly. Okay. Oh my god.
And another one.